Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Fitness for the Body, Mind, and Soul. It's Sunday, August 14th, and we're delighted to have such a wonderful guest today. You're really in for a treat because this is information that's invaluable, and we have one of the most foremost teachers in the world of all of these principles and teachings on manifestation and really manifestation, healing, and psychokinesis, right?
That's correct.
There you go. So we're fortunate here in Hendersonville to have Dr. Joe Gallenberger. He is a local resident here, but he hasn't thus far done much teaching here. He did have a 30-year practice in as a therapist, I guess as a psychologist, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and now he has been a long-time teacher for the Monroe Institute, which is world-renowned, and he teaches seminars all over the world and many, many interesting topics, and one in particular that I think is wonderful, and we're going to plan a center trip to, we're going to Vegas for the Vegas adventure. So we're going to talk about that, talk about Joe's work, and you're going to be certainly enlightened and inspired and want to save your pennies for the Vegas adventure in October. So save your dollars maybe. So anyway, and anyone out there who's watching this on YouTube, you can join us as well. But again, we're delighted to have all of you all here today, and Dr. Joe Gallenberger, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, Joe, we'll just get right to it. I know that some people don't know exactly what the Monroe Institute is. Would you just share a little bit of the history of that?
Robert Monroe founded the Institute. He was a man very interested in using sound to help with learning, and found that the state right before sleep was a good place to do the learning. As he explored that, he had out-of-body experiences, and so that really intrigued him. So he began to do some research on that, and at this point, the Monroe Institutes in Virginia, they've had, I think, about 50,000 people go through, 20 people at a time.
I am going to ask you just to speak a little more into the mic and maybe with a little more.
I'll get a little used to this.
Okay, there. Okay.
All right. So at the Institute, even though out-of-body was one of the first focuses, they found that all of using the technology with sound allowed people to go to all different altered states and enter into deep prayer states, communication with guidance, creativity states, you name it. So at this point, there's probably 20 different kinds of programs with different focuses up there, and I've been training up there about 20 years.
Okay, so now, again, how did you get involved with them? And if you could even speak a little more into it, I apologize.
I'll put it even closer.
Yeah, how did you get introduced to Monroe, and how did you become a teacher there?
I had quite a bit of out-of-body experiences as a child, as well as experiences of oneness and different things. And so when I saw his books, they really intrigued me. And after reading the second book, looked around to see if there was a place you could study this. Found out about the Institute, went up, and loved it. Went to 2 or 3 programs quickly. And so I cut a VCR tape, that's way back, right?
Yeah.
And sent it to him to introduce myself. And I called that Monday telling people it would arrive, and they said, oh, he's years behind in his mail. And they hung up the phone, and he called me. On Saturday, saw this huge stack of mail with the tape on top, took the tape at home, watched it, and so he contacted with me, and we got to know each other, and got offered to be a trainer up there.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, so besides being a trainer there, what workshops do you facilitate there?
I do probably a half a dozen of their programs. Their premier program, that's an introduction to pretty much everything else, is called Gateway. I do that. I develop some programs for them, including one called MC Squared, for Manifestation and Creation Squared, where we deal with energy healing, psychokinesis, which is the ability to affect matter with your mind, and also manifesting things in your life. You find that's the same energy for all 3.
Yeah, well, psychokinesis, it's healing, manifestation, and psychokinesis is basically the topic for today, and probably a lot of what you're all about. So you said psychokinesis, affecting matter with our mind. Can you go a little more deeper into that?
Sure. There's, I think it's an innate ability, and many of us as kids may be in touch with it a little bit, often lose it later. Some countries like China do a lot of research on this and put their children through very systematic programs to develop this. But it might be things like taking metal and bending it with your mind, or plastic, teleporting objects across space, lighting light bulbs with your hand, growing seeds in your hand in 5 minutes. The nice thing about those things, it gives you very fast feedback, whether you're able to raise the right heart energy, focus it, let go after you form your intent and let things flow. And so we use it mainly as feedback because it's good training for when you do healing. For example, if I touch someone and their headache went away, I don't know if they did it, I did it, it was going to go away anyway. If it doesn't go away, is it maybe not supposed to? So that's pretty fuzzy. And so as a scientist, I wanted to look at this ability a little more carefully. And so we went to university laboratories where we would do experiments. One, for example, the height of a fountain bubbles by random hydrodynamic law keeps changing. And so the instruction was to leave it be for 15 minutes, then make it higher for 15 and then lower. So using energy techniques and all, I was able to accomplish that at 1 in 100,000 type of thing by chance. Another experiment they had there was to use a random number generator, which kind of goes heads, tail flips 1,000 times a second, should come out 50-50. And so they could assign the heads to be pixels from this picture, say a pyramid, the tails from another picture, say a kitty cat. And you would go, here, kitty, 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 and get the computers through the random number generators, just pick pixels from the cat picture. See the cat get clear.
Oh, wow.
Lock that in. And I did that at 30,001 by chance. So it gave me an idea that this is really possible, and it's not just a nice fairy story that we got to So then I wanted to practice, and I looked around, where can you do this regularly, and picked Las Vegas. That's where the adventure comes in, because the dice are guaranteed to be neutral. And so I went out there for about 5 years on my own, and found that the deepest meditation states I experienced with eyes closed in a very retreat-like setting, I could duplicate while you're walking, talking, gaming, running around. And in fact, we could affect the dice. And the energy needed is really interesting from a psychological point of view. There's something called psychological conditioning, reward punishment. And on the dice table, the rewards are very rapid, so if you move into wide open heart, connected with all it is, deeply grounded to earth energy, feeling all is one, having let go of all your fears, and all you get rewarded. So you're always kind of being rewarded to be in a more enlightened way of living. And if you go into greed, fear, ego, punish, 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 by loss, loss, loss. But they happen every few seconds. So it really gives you a sense of this is how it feels like to be in the zone. This is how it feels like to be not. So I found it a good learning for myself, so I began to teach that. And I've done 57 Vegas adventures now in the last 10 years.
I bet they're popular.
Yeah, so we have fun. I sometimes say, here comes Mr. Lucky, but they come still, so that's good. We play with very little money because it's not the point.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It was more feedback instead of really, even though it would be nice.
Well, it's fun, and you know, even $3 makes people pay attention differently. So we're all counting on each other. We play as a group, and so everybody is really moves into their effectability to really help each other and learn quickly, because it's expensive not to.
Yeah, that's right.
So I did that for several years, and then wondered how about expanding that into a 6-day program, and that's when the MC Squared up at Monroe was developed.
Wow.
We use dice up there, but also the spoons and seeds and all that other stuff. That's feedback again.
And so I know we talked the other day on the radio. How does this relate to quantum science versus Newtonian science?
The people in laboratories that look at this to try to explain it usually have to go to quantum theory, which I don't pretend to understand except for, oh yeah, uncertainty principle, observer, etc. But within high scientific minds, Nobel Prize winning laureates, they can see that this is possible within quantum as they understand it. The other thing that happened out there that was kind of a surprise was much spontaneous healing. We had one woman with polio come in the second day of the workshop, for example, and say she was pain-free for the first time in 20 years. And we've had in MC Squared and the Vegas Adventure, lots of powerful healings. One guy with foot fungus all over his nails, all yellow for 20, 30 years, waking up the next day completely clear nails. So that's real fun. And as people left and they'd go home, they'd manifest all kinds of things, like a cabin in the woods, 3 months off of work, and a book advance to write a book.
Oh, wow.
Finding their soulmate or whatever it might be that they're interested in. So.
Well, that's what we all want to learn to do, is manifest more, and of course use it as a tool for not only personal gain, but to serve the world. And you created the Sync Creation program, which I have, and I've read through it. It's a fabulous program. You want to talk about that, because that's amazing.
Well, after doing MC Squared for several years, we wondered if we could develop a home study version for several reasons. One was cheaper and not having to take time off of work and travel. Two was that a lot of the things that perhaps, say, the movie The Secret doesn't talk about is the deeper shadow work that needs repetition, like to get rid of fears, feelings of lack, feelings of guilt, that in a week you can get a taste of, which you might need to apply like layers of an onion peeling away to get where you want to go. So the course has these custom exercises with meditation called Hemisync to synchronize your brain into whole brain learning. And then they are in deep meditative states, working on these issues, as well as visualizing what you would like to create, etc. It also comes with 8 coaching sessions and a big 100-page workbook with all the spin bending and growing seeds in your hands and all those things. And so we've had good luck. We have folks all over the world, and when they go meditate, they may see people they don't even know in their meadow as they're meditating, doing the same exercises as they are with them.
Oh,
so
my
there's a
goodness.
feeling of group energy with it, which we really wanted to have.
Oh, that is fantastic. Well, now, how would someone purchase that or find out more about it? What's your website?
The website is Sync, S-Y-N-C, from the word Hemisync. Sync stands for synchronization. So S-Y-N-C, and the word creation, creation.com. So all one word, Sync Creation.
Great, and all your events and everything are listed there as well. So they get full service website, beautiful website, by the way. Yes. Well, you know, you had mentioned one thing that I'm really, and I think people are really becoming aware of it, is the power of the heart energy. And can you talk a little bit about getting into your heart more?
I think there's many ways to do psychokinesis. A person could be very angry and say, I'm so angry I could break glass, and a stone will come through the windshield and do them that favor. But it's not a positive thing to generate that kind of high, intense, negative emotion. The heart energy is the best energy for consistency over time. And so in Vegas, for example, we put together a series of songs that, like You Light Up My Life and Wind Under My Wings and things, to really have people's hearts open yet stay grounded. I was listening to a woman pianist the other day. She's about 37, just came off of 3 years fighting cancer. She's playing Liszt, and Liszt had huge hands, playing just beautifully. And listened to her video, and she said, you know, the perfection and the virtuosity is great, but what I really love is when I'm almost out of control. And she said, because the heart experiences itself best during risk.
Wow.
And I think that's pretty true. You know, so in relationships and other things, as you risk all, you have two choices: go into open heart or go into fear. If you go into open heart, that's when miracles happen.
Wow.
So I like one of my favorite sayings is, fear is expensive, love is priceless, choose wisely.
That's a very good one, very good. Well, that's great, I have to remember that. Well, what about, this to me is a no-brainer for, besides everything you mentioned, but for athletes. And I've been a professional golfer and a golf instructor, and now I do seminars on the mind-body connection, so my mind's already spinning now. But have you worked with athletes on this?
Yes, definitely. A lot of people that want to be at their peak in business or in athletics or as healers or what have you. And a lot of people spiritually searching. So again, in my belief, in this, as you raise energy, you have to watch what you think. So if I ask an audience often, how many of you are searchers? Everybody's hand goes up. I say, would you rather not be a finder? It's a different energy. It's just slightly different. And so we focus a lot on that type of thing, where a person may be very good-hearted, but not grounded enough, or their thinking still may be just needing something as simple as, I've searched for 20 years, so that's my energy.
Right.
And if we can shift it to a finder, then they nail a 4.0 guy, or whatever it is, 10, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting. Well, when you practice these and implement them, I mean, is there more to it than the meditation? I mean, what do people do to implement this?
Meditation is very helpful to, it's different than blanking your mind type of meditation, but more raising energy very high and also seeing what comes through the mind to look at. So if I were meditating and I saw a little red wagon rather than a distraction, I would look at that. And as I pull that thread, I might have the memory of being 5 years old, running down the hill in the wagon and feel totally carefree and unburdened. And then a message might come across the sky, play more. That happened to me when my daughter was about 3.5 months old, and I got very serious. So you're looking in meditation for guidance, and then within that, working with the beliefs to change them to be more empowering, those kind of things. So when I do these seminars, say with metal bending, people start with, it's not possible, it's sleight of hand. Then, okay, maybe it is, and they go, I'm afraid I won't be able to do it. But the step deeper than that is, I'm afraid I will be able to do it.
Right.
It changes my whole belief about the world, myself, my power, etc. In our culture, power is not considered very safe often.
Well, that reminds me, Marianne Williamson's famous quote, our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate, our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. So that's a great point there.
So we look at a lot of beliefs. When I talk about the Vegas adventure, a lot of people go, oh, I don't gamble. And I think, wow, you came to this planet, you had children, you're a high roller. And it would be better to learn how to risk intelligently. Because in fact, us here on stage is a risk, everything in the room has been a risk, the iPod and everything else developed. Somebody took a risk. Your parents even took a risk having you,
Yeah, that's okay.
So, but in general, the culture kind of says, no pain, no gain, nothing good comes easy, oh, it's risky. There's a lot of beliefs that it's good to look at and put away.
Yeah, the old belief system.
So if you can clear it up, then having that real high energy, it can be incredibly easy. For example, metal bending, the people that do it the easiest is little kids. They just go, oh, it's possible, okay.
Do you have kids come to your seminars ever?
No, mostly I deal with my own teenage girls.
That's enough right there.
I know the youngest said, I don't know if I can do this and all that, if it's possible. And I said, well, you never even let me show you. She rolled her eyes. Okay. And I start talking, blah, 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 and the phone rings. I reach over to pick it up, and I look back, and she bent her back. She said, I got tired of listening to you. I just shut fire out of my eyes. So that kind of simple, wide open heart trust That's what those moments.
Yeah. Well, is there an element of spirituality with this, or is this just science, or a blend of both?
I think blend of both, depending on how you approach it. You can nail this down. So I know in Vegas, when somebody gets 6 numbers in a row in roulette correctly, it's 1.6 billion to 1 by chance. Not likely to happen. And as you repeat this over and over, it becomes a no. At the same time, usually what you find is a lot more as you open your heart, connection with spirit, and people report all kinds of things that are spiritual, believe it or not, at the dice tables. Seeing angelic choirs, hearing them, feeling presence of all their ancestors and loved ones, feeling their spirit guides, what have you. So that opening tends to create opening.
Right. Well, this really, I guess the thread of truth that that's coming to mind for me, be it spiritual or whatever, being a Course in Miracles student and teacher for a number of years, I'm thinking of the introduction, just a line there that says, of course, doesn't aim at teaching the meaning of love or God, because that's beyond what can be taught, but rather removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. Okay. So it's really getting rid of all those obstacles.
It's very compatible.
Yeah, and so the Course talks about forgiveness, and I really releasing any unresolved angers or issues. And I guess this is the same thing, right?
Yeah, so an example I use sometimes from my life that was a true story was I was sitting under my computer one day and just had a thought, gee, I'd like to take my wife to Paris, that'd be fun, she's never been. And pops up an email, would you like to train in France? And I thought, that's great, but it'd be really romantic to go over first class round trip for free. And by the end of the day, I had tickets.
Wow.
There wasn't much negative in the way. It was just high energy in general and then a nice idea. And the ideas are always put out this or something better. So as I went over, ended up with 10 or 12 different workshops over there, one in Germany, where the people were very loving and cuddly and wonderful with each other. When we went to bend the metal, we yelled, "Ben," really loudly, and the heart chakra was constricted and brought up the Nazi experience. We had a 2 or 3 hour presence place where I had no idea what one word I said or anybody else, but it was very healing with that. Wow. So you set things up that it'll take you on a journey to wonderful places. But contrast that to say, I'm a young guy, 14, 15, let's say 15, and I look at you in class and I start to feel good about you, and I start asking everybody, what do you think about me? So I've telegraphed. And I go up to ask you out. And I say, would you go out with me? And you say, no. And you walk away. And I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to assume you didn't like me. What's really going on is you went to your dad that night and said, can I date now? Is this guy who likes me? And your dad said, no, not for another year. And so you're humiliated and angry, etc.
Yeah.
Okay. My conclusion, though, is you don't like me. So 3 months go by, and another person attracts my attention. Now my timing's off because I have fear. I got rings under my arms, and I go, you wouldn't want to go out with me, would you? And the whole thing is a disaster. Now I got fact. In those situations, if you want to change what you're manifesting, that's when you get into a lot of the skills that are taught, say, in St. Creation Home Study or Manifestation Squared at Monroe, because it's not easy to forgive, to let go, and just move on sometimes.
Well, so when we practice these principles, and we begin to have these effects from that, is this I'm of the belief that really we're one mind, and as I heal, as I forgive, that everyone benefits by that, because every loving thought I hold brings peace and healing to the entire world. Do you believe in that principle or thought?
Yes, and it's, for me, if you want to teach joy, the best way to teach it is be it yourself. So be what you would like to see in the world. and it is very powerful. We started MC Squared, I don't know, let's say 15 years ago. And for somebody to get a bend and a spoon like that was a major achievement. Now, we have stuff that looks like sculptures.
Oh, wow.
And much more quickly. At the beginning, maybe 25% of the group could do it. Now, 15 years later, usually it's 100%, maybe 95% of the group can do it. So there's this progress, morphogenic wave, whatever you want to call it. As one person advances, I think we all do.
Yeah, I would say I agree with that too. Well, this is fascinating, and I know that there's so much. What's on your all's mind out there? Does anyone have a question? Yeah, Deb.
Did you teach your clients to use this practice?
I used the hemisync, hemispheric synchronization CDs, with my clients quite a bit because they're excellent at helping with induced sleep or relaxing or creativity states or letting go of fears. And so depending on the client and what was appropriate, it was often more effective and faster than using, for example, hypnosis or talk therapy. And so it could be combined. So if a person came in with anxiety, for example, as a therapist, if you've been doing it 20 years, okay, here we go through this routine to reduce that, but if you give them a CD, they listen to it, come back the next week saying, I've never been more relaxed, then we can kind of go, oh, now we can get underneath that, what was going on. And that was more of the juicy work, if you will.
Is it subliminal or?
No. How this works is presenting a tone one ear to the other about 4 cycles different, for example. And in that situation, the brain will go in to 4-cycle rhythm. That, for example, is a brainwave for sleep. So if your intention was to go to sleep, it will help you do so real well. But it doesn't make you do anything. So it's almost like if there was a band playing the waltz in the back there, we could ignore it, we could tap our feet, or we could get up and waltz. If we wanted to waltz, the band would help us a lot. So if you want to relax, it says to the brain, this is the rhythm, this is the rhythm. And so quite rapidly it would work. But then if the fire alarm went off or the telephone rang, you could get right out of it. So it doesn't lock you into anything. It's very facilitative.
Yes.
Have you considered an excursion to Cherokee?
Yes.
Closer.
It is closer. They don't have dice tables out there, which is one of the things we use. Now that we're doing a slots workshop, that could be a possibility. But, we just had our first one of those in June. And it was a lot of fun too. We had 3 royal flushes in the group in 2 days, and a royal flush is about 40,000 to 1 by chance. So it gives me time to tell a little story.
Sure, there you go.
To example for this heart. I wanted to get a royal flush in hearts in Vegas. That's 160,000 to 1. I taught all day and was tired, and I snuck away to a tiny place in the casino. I didn't think anybody'd find me, and I sat down to do this. And 3 group members came up behind me. Oh, can we play? And I had this split second. And I opened my heart and said, sure. Even though my ego had said, you want to be alone. They sat down, and next poll, royal flush in hearts.
Wow. There you go.
Wow.
So you get this constant proof if you choose one way.
Yeah.
It goes
Right.
one way.
Yeah, well, that's a great story.
And as you get going in this kind of work, the choices come rapidly, and you can ask for small lessons, please, I'll pay attention, and fun lessons like that. You know, so the worst that would have happened was I lost $5.
Yeah, there you go.
And the best was the experience with them there, taking my picture, congratulating me, was actually better than winning it alone.
Oh my gosh, that's
and
great.
$4,000 didn't hurt.
That sounds fun. Yes, Gordon.
I'm interested. I was worked with children for 35 years in Illinois, and worked with gifted to children who, quote, had learning problems.
Yes.
I'm just very interested, being out of it for a few years. Is there any? Are you aware, or do you do the work? Are you aware of anyone who's using what you're talking about, which I did institute with some of the earlier, and had some success
Okay.
using some of the, quote, far out things.
Yes.
But people did listen to me in public education. Are you aware that anything more is being done? Because there seem to be, so many more children. They're talking about autistic, etc. And it concerns me.
Monroe Institute has a professional division with hundreds of doctors and teachers, etc. in it. They publish a lot of studies.
Yes.
They use it in many classrooms as a background to enhance concentration. In that case, you would have what we would call a beta signal, a higher alert brainwaves pattern. And for example, if this room was leather chairs and I talked, even if I was interesting, probably within 20 minutes there'd be some squeaking. Put that on and usually you can go an hour before you hear anybody get fidgety. So it was great for learning disabled classes. And if you call up there, they can give you, specific. It's alphabetized. I can't even say that.
Alphabetized.
Alphabetized today. So you could look under anxiety, autism, alcoholism, ADD. Just an example in the A's, and they would have information.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Yeah, Deb.
Are you banned from any casinos?
No. Vegas keeps track mostly of people by face and name, and I bring different groups each time. We have folks coming the next group. We have somebody from Latvia, we have folks from Australia and Japan. And we're known for being generous. We started a blessing bucket there that just sits on the side anonymously in these workshops, and we've raised about $100,000 over the years for charity.
Excellent.
And one time, a lady's teenage daughter was in a bad accident, had one leg amputated, the other crushed, several friends died. And we raised, I think, over $3,000 for her immediately so she could stay home with her kid. And we also sent good energy. And the girl had a wonderful adjustment, was on Oprah talking about teen driving, has done really well. So our reputation out there is pretty good. When I started doing this, in fact, I kind of asked guidance, is this okay? And heard a very compassionate voice say, son, haven't you learned yet how much fun it is to light a candle in the darkness? And then I go out there, and the crew sometimes burst into tears. Send me that energy. What are you guys doing? Because we stay so positive, even if if we get up there and you don't do so well, we still cheer and clap. The casino looks at us and say, well, the casino's got to win sometime. And then we keep the energy positive, and then all of a sudden, boom, we're doing well. But so they like to see us. Not all, you have to pick a good place. And so the first place, we were pretty outrageous. We would do all. And we won 3 workshops in a row, and they asked us to not be there anymore. And the second place, we stayed for years. And then there was a complaint by a person about their room. And management looked, and we'd won every session for the workshop, everybody. And they said bye. And this third place we have stayed at now, we've been there for many years, and they like us. So what we call a good house would let players play, because they say, Joe, we filmed you. You guys might be winning, but that whole part of the casino fills with people.
Yeah, that's
So they're not worried about us.
it's a win-win.
And their level of money is so different. The vault under MGM can have $2.6 billion in a weekend there. And so, little ripples of $50, $100 is not much on the radar.
Well, it sounds like Las Vegas could actually pay off our debt in the country.
Yeah.
Based on those numbers, yeah. So we think there's no money, and look at that. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, I tell you what, this has been wonderful, fascinating, and intriguing for me. I look forward to the seminar next week, and also look forward to really diving into all your good stuff, and using that here as a center, and inviting all you all to join us. And so thank you very much again, and thank you all for joining us today.